East Hampton Town Planning Board, you are live on the air and you're being recorded.
Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Planning Board of the Town of East Hampton, our meeting of October 6th, 2021. We are back on the Zoom chat for this meeting. And before we go any further, I'd like Michael from LTV to just make a short announcement for those who are in the Zoom chat. Michael, go ahead.
Sure. Just as a general safety for the efficiency of tonight's meeting, there are a lot of people in this Zoom chat. Can you please mute yourself and hide your video unless you're actively engaged in the application at hand? Again, there's 27 people in this meeting, so it's important that we go through this swiftly and easily with no interruptions. Again, please mute yourself, and if you've called in through Zoom, please mute your phone unless you're actually going to be speaking. That said, Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And again, as we have in the past in these Zoom meetings, we are unable to hear from the public on any matters that are in site plan review or during our work session. But of course, we'll be accepting, as we always do, submissions. Most of the people who are not on the board or on planning staff who are in the waiting room are related to an application, and of course, they'll have the opportunity to speak as their application comes up. We have quite a few matters on tonight for sub-waiver review, site plan review, and a few matters in our regular meeting. So let's get right to it. The first matter we have is the Hand Lane South sub-waiver review. This is being handled by Will on behalf of the Planning Department, Will Highland on behalf of the Planning Department. Kathy Cunningham is on behalf of the Planning Board and is the applicant connected. Thomas?
It's Britton, I believe, and I see her on here.
Okay, Ms. Bistrine, are you there?
Yeah. I am here, Chairman Kramer, to represent the application.
Very good. Okay. So, Will, why don't you lead us and lead off in this discussion? Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, so this is an application to divide the original parcel into two individual lots. The property is Zone B residence and must contain a minimum of 20,000 square feet. The existing driveway will be relocated as a common driveway for the two lots. On August 4th, 2021, a public hearing was held in the East Hampton Town Hall, televised on LTV and made available for live stream on the website. A transcript of the hearing was posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing was to remain open until August 11th for the purpose of receiving written comments. Two members of the public spoke at the hearing and stated that they were opposed to the proposed sub-waiver, citing concerns regarding the layout of the neighborhood and fears of potential disruptions, in addition to producing a letter with 40 signatures on it from concerned neighbors. Additionally, 6 additional written comments were submitted to the public opposing. I actually think it's 7 additional written comments were submitted to the public opposing the proposed sub-waiver now. The primary concern, generally speaking, was the recent proliferation of large residences in the Lanes area of Amagansett and the negative effect this has had on the area's existing aesthetic. It was expressed that the subject application may exacerbate this trend. The planning department, and I guess I'll share the screen to show you everyone the parcel as well. Okay. The planning department notes that the subject parcel is 43,704 square feet and currently contains a one-story residence with a footprint of roughly 4,000 square feet. Under current zoning, a maximum building coverage of 6,556 square feet is permitted, and a maximum residential gross floor area of 5,970 square feet would be permitted. In contrast, under the proposed sub-waiver, Lot 1 would be permitted a maximum building coverage of 4,249 square feet and a maximum gross floor area of 3,724 square feet. For proposed Lot 2, the maximum allowable coverage would be 4,492 square feet, and the maximum gross floor area would be 3,846 square feet. Therefore, the proposed sub-waiver would result in greater aggregate maximum allowable building coverage and maximum gross floor area. However, it should be considered that the property as one lot currently could allow for a single residence of a significantly larger size than the two residences that could each be built on two lots. The subwaiver proposes a front lot, back flag lot configuration rather than a side-by-side configuration when viewed from Han Lane. Therefore, the maximum allowable overall size of the residence would be fronting on Han Lane, would be reduced as a result of the proposed subwaiver. Additionally, the board is reminded that no lot area variances or lot width variances were required for the proposal. In conclusion, the board should discuss the public's concerns at this time and determine if they have been adequately addressed or if any additional conditions or mitigation is warranted. Otherwise, the application is ready for approval.
Thanks very much. Well, Ms. Bistrian?
Good evening, Chairman Kramer, members of the board. I don't really have much to add. This is a wrap-up memo. The project conforms to zoning. I understand there's some public commentary that was brought up, but I don't necessarily think it's solved by this application. I think there are some, I hear the concerns of the lanes. I do think there's some code revisions that we could look at. It. Maybe you could liaise with the town board, maybe because all these lots have 100% clearing. I think that's part of the problem, that there's these houses feel bigger because they're not screened at all. But to get back to the matter at hand, the massing of this particular project, as Will pointed out, with a front-back configuration versus a house that could span the entire lot, this is actually an improvement. And I will note that the people, I don't know about all 7 letters that were written, but the 3 people that spoke at the hearing all live on lots that are smaller than the lots we are creating with larger houses. So again, I don't think there's anything from the public commentary that would bode any sort of conditions with this particular approval. But if the board has any questions for me, I'm happy to address them.
Thank you very much. Kathy?
Well, first of all, I'm of 2 minds here. I want to thank the applicant for working with us to design what I think is the best possible outcome here on this lot as it conforms with the code. But I do hear what the public has been saying with respect to density. The size of the house is one thing, but to have 2 houses and so on. So I would like to recommend that we approve the application, but I would also ask the planning board members to consider sending a recommendation to the town board to consider a moratorium while a study might be done. I'm reasonably sure that the comprehensive plan has not encouraged, increased density in these in lots of these sizes. So I think I think we are obliged to approve this because it meets all the code requirements. But in deference to the neighbors who are concerned, I think maybe we should ask the town board to conduct some kind of a study and anticipate what else may happen to this neighborhood, as it does seem to be a trend. That's it.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Does any of the board members wish to weigh in with any comments before we determine if the public's concerns have been adequately addressed?
I would like to agree with what the recommendation that has been made before the board with regard to sending a letter from the planning board to the town board regarding the density and the lanes. I think it's very important, and I think it's something that the town makes the quality of life better for the town. And I think it's something that everybody wants. And if we can do that, if the board can do something about that, I think we'd all be better off. So I force approving of Kathy's suggestion.
Does anybody object to that idea? Any of the board members?
I was going to suggest it myself.
Okay.
Yes, Sam, I would clarify what we mean by density. I think there's a couple of issues here. One is the house size permitted. The house size that Will describes here, the gross floor area of the the two houses would be 7 times the size of the largest apartment in our affordable housing proposal. So I think, density often deals with population, but I think we're also talking about gross floor area of houses and coverage of houses here.
Yeah, sure. And access and, parking and circulation and, the traffic that it'll bring to the area and so forth.
Yeah. It's not just aesthetic. I mean, I know Will mentioned aesthetics, but as Kathy says, it's traffic, it's wastewater. It has an impact on the availability of affordable housing in town.
It's a quality of life issue too. So
it's also something that in my observation has been building in this particular part of town for quite a few years. And, we are really constrained in our ability as the planning board to do anything about it. Because when you have an application like this that meets zoning, we have very little leeway in the matter. So I think it would be useful for the town to take a good look at this, and to the extent that there is that they can ameliorate the situation, they should look into it. So, all right, let me just ask: do we all agree that the public's concerns have been adequately addressed? Is there anyone who disputes that?
Well, I think, Sam, we're qualifying it and saying that we don't believe the long-term planning concerns expressed by the public have been adequately addressed by the town board yet.
Well, I should say it's in the context of this application.
Okay.
It's really it's a two-headed question, really. One is, have the public's concerns been adequately addressed in the context of this application, and have the broader issues, which we can't do anything about, but we are suggesting that the town board can. I think the answer to the first one may be yes, because our hands are tied. But in the second one, the answer is probably no.
Well said.
So, so maybe we can let's narrow the focus to this application. With respect to this application, have the public's concerns been addressed?
Yes.
Anyone disagree with that? Not hearing anything?
I don't think that's the right question, frankly.
What's wrong with it?
Well, because there weren't a lot of people that spoke in favor of this. I would say that the public's concerns regarding this application have not been addressed, but I think more to the point, we cannot address them. So,
It meets code. I think we could ask that question. Does the application
maybe that's the way to handle it, because
all the code requirements?
Well, Thomas, isn't it our obligation to ensure that the public's concerns are addressed with respect to this application? And if we were to find that we ignore, or that the public has been ignored, then we couldn't.
Well, I think the board is required to consider public comment. It doesn't require, the board is not required to agree with public comment.
But I think in this case, we agree with the public comment, but we also acknowledge that we can't do anything about it.
Well, that's the point. So why do we ask the question if it's not,
Yeah, I think you can move on to the approve, is the application ready for approval question? I think, the board members and everyone has kind of summed up the issue pretty well. So,
and I think that before we do that, we can say that I there's no one here on the board who objects to us sending out a letter, that asking the town board address the concerns that have been raised by the public.
Sam, I don't think we have enough information. Well, what I would ask the board is why this neighborhood and not Springs, where we approve subdivisions all the time, where the same density and house size issues exist. I don't know that I have enough information to say this neighborhood is special and more of a problem than any others. So I don't know how we'd phrase that letter. So I'm not comfortable with the general idea of doing it without knowing more details.
well, mean, I think if the neighbors come forward and express a trend, which they have done, and we cannot address those issues, I think it's incumbent upon us to pass those along to the agency that can.
Well, I would support the neighbors or any community members who feel this way to approach the town board directly. I just don't know that there's a special planning issue about this neighborhood that's different than others.
Well, Ian, I think that what you have here is a number of members of the board, and I don't know if it's a majority or not, but you have a number of members of the board who if the zoning wasn't requiring it, we would be voting against the subdivision.
But isn't that the way that all subdivisions really work, is that we look at what the zoning says would allow? I mean, if others feel strongly that this particular neighborhood should have larger lot size, be upzoned, that's okay. I'm not comfortable saying that and then not addressing, the town as a whole. Because ironically, we're going to talk about, there's an affordable housing crisis, there's all sorts of things. And so I just don't know that this neighborhood requires that special attention. I don't know. I'm not against the town board looking at it. I don't think the planning board, or I as a member anyway, have enough information to say that this is a particular problem.
Well, speaking for myself, and again, I'm only speaking for myself, I think that this is a particular issue in Narragansett. I know that, I think I mentioned that, years ago when I was first on the planning board, these applications started to come in and no one ever did anything about it. And now here we are, 12, 14 years later, whatever it is. And I don't know how many more lots there are that would be relevant to this change, but whatever's left, I think they should look at.
Maybe we do subdivisions and urban renewals all the time in Springs, and we frequently have objections, but we haven't asked anybody to look at that, at upzoning Springs or limiting house sizes. And so I just think that if we're talking, if you believe it's a problem, but specifically in this neighborhood, great. I think it's more of a town-wide issue.
Well, I agree with Ian that the gross floor area or the house size in East Hampton is still too large everywhere, and that we might want to say to look at gross floor area and house size in general. But I think you can make an argument that this area, there aren't that many areas in the town where you have this pattern of small lot development south of the highway. Most of the, like Wainscott and the Village, you have these big farm tracts, and so Amagansett is somewhat unique in that it has all these lanes and this pattern of small homes. It's really the neighborhood character there. And the fact that it's south of the highway puts a lot of pressure on it for the second home market.
Let me just quickly ask. How many folks think we should ask the town board to look at it with respect to Amagansett?
I do.
I do.
I do, but I am swayed by Ian's argument that it is a town-wide problem. I think there are unique circumstances in Amagansett, but GFA in particular is an issue everywhere, including here in Springs.
Well, I don't think we have to
define it. Listen, this is the first application and we got a lot on it. So let me just get a sense of whether we should send a letter or not. Ed, is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
That's a yes. Sharon?
I'm okay with the letter.
Okay. I am too. So I think that's everybody.
Would the letter say that we think they should look at gross floor area town-wide, and I don't know, however you decide.
What I'll do, Randy, what we'll do is I'll circulate the letter among the board and before it goes out.
Okay.
Right? And we can wordsmith it that way. All right, so is the application ready for approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So again, I'm sorry if I'm moving a little quickly on it, but I'm just, I have to keep my eye on the clock tonight. The next one is CMPSJ. Oh, Ms. Bistream, anything else on that?
No, I'm representing the subsequent application with Andy as well.
Oh, okay. Well, let's stick around. Okay. All right. CMPSJ lot line modification. Will, this is yours. Lou, you're also on this. And Ms. Bistream is also on this. So go ahead, Will. Well, there we go.
Okay, so an application was originally submitted to the planning board in January 2020 to reconfigure the lot line of two parcels by transferring 10,692 square feet of lot area from lot 1 to lot 2. This was to allow an existing 1,039 square foot two-bedroom cottage on lot 1 to be situated on lot 2. No physical changes to the site were proposed. The parcels are situated in Amagansett off of Marine Boulevard, or Zone B. They are situated within the Coastal Erosion Overlay District and Flood Hazard Overlay District. They are currently both improved with two-story single-family residents as well as associated accessory structures. The properties front on the Atlantic Ocean and are roughly bisected by a primary dune. The parcels are also entirely seaward of the coastal erosion hazard line and contain beach vegetation throughout. Since the application's last review by the planning board in February of 2020, it has gone through an extensive review process by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The applicant has submitted a new survey to the planning board that reflects said review process, and it appears through the process of its review by the ZBA, the applicant has addressed many of the planning board's concerns from the previous review. During that previous evaluation, it was requested that a number of modifications be made to that iteration of the map, including proposed coverage and clearing calculations and gross floor area calculations. Additionally, it was also requested that zoning, school, and fire district information be added to the map, and that the scenic easement and covenants and restrictions be extended over that were only over a partial portion of the lot be extended over the remaining portion of the proposed lot 2. On the newest version of the survey that was last revised on December 11th of 2020, it appears that those concerns have been addressed. Zoning, school, and fire district information have been added to the map, as have existing gross floor area calculations. The scenic easement and covenants and restrictions have been extended over the entirety of the proposed lot 2. Due to the owners of both lots being co-applicants on the application, as well as its nature as a proposed lot line modification, the planning board can choose to waive the public hearing. However, at the hearing for the Zoning Board of Appeals, numerous public comments were submitted, so it will be up to the planning board to determine whether they would want to hold a public hearing to address any potential new comments, and otherwise the previous concerns regarding map modifications have been addressed and the application is complete.
Very well. Thank you very much. Ms. Bistream.
I believe Andy's going to begin. Andy?
Oh, okay.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Chairman, members of the board? The first thing I want to say is I really object to that aerial photo, because that's the aerial photo that shows where the existing house was removed from the property. It looks like a meteor hit it. I'm sure if you took a revised aerial right now, you would see the beautiful re-veg that was accomplished in there. That makes the site look much more visually appropriate. In terms of the our zoning board review, I think Will had it right that, there were comments made. I don't believe any of those comments were substantively related to any of the issues that the zoning board thought were, would sway their opinion. And that was really the difficult public hearing in terms of meeting the variance standards. I think a lot of the comments related back to, I think it was Jeannie Sachs was the original developer of this property. And I guess when she owned the property, there were some hard feelings that she incurred in the neighborhood. A lot of those came out, but I think if you look at the public hearing comments, and I'm certainly happy to have those comments included in the board's file, there weren't many that actually addressed anything that's in front of the planning board. We did have due process. A lot of those neighbors came out. A lot of them came out in support as well. There were probably equal numbers on both sides saying, hey, we think this is absolutely fine. There's no change to the environmental conditions, the appearance, the character of the community, which I think the zoning board took notice of, and that's why they approved the application. So in terms of having a public hearing, my feeling is we kind of had a public hearing and due process was served. Obviously, that's within the board's discretion, but, I don't see that any new information is going to be brought to the board's attention that I think will, change my opinion on that if we do have another public hearing. So I think that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Lou?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the concerns have been met. I don't see any issues with the request that's being made on this application. I don't think there is any environmental problems or easement problems. I think, in my opinion, everything is up to snuff. I'm struggling with the public hearing, whether to agree to have another public hearing in front of the planning board or not. But whenever I'm doubtful and hesitant, I always try to err on the side of voting for public hearing. So in this case, I think it's best that just to make sure there are no stones left unturned, I think I would vote to have a public hearing. But other than that, I think all the concerns have been met and I'm fine with the application.
Okay, yeah, the only issue that the planning department has put up is whether we should hold a public hearing in order to address any potential new comments that might come in for the application, or do we choose to waive it? Let me just go across the table. I'll start. Sharon, how do you feel about public hearing on this one?
I understand Lou's point. I mean, I think it's probably unnecessary, but just to err on the caution side, we should do it.
Randy? Thank you, Sharon. Randy? Randy?
I agree with Sharon and Lou.
Okay. Kathy?
Basically, they've done a good job with it, but we probably should err on the side of a public hearing on this one.
Okay. Thanks, Randy. Kathy?
Same.
Ian?
Yeah, I wouldn't fight the board on it. I could go either way, but I think that's the way it's going.
Thanks. And Ed?
Yes.
Okay, and I'll join in on that. So we can, we'll have a public hearing on this one and see if anything new comes up. All right, thank you very much. Mr. Hammer, Ms. Nistrian, anything else from you guys?
No, I'm hoping it's in person, though. I'd like to see you guys.
I would love it to be in person.
Thank you. Good evening.
And that's above our pay grade, so considerable.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Okay. We're going into site plan review matters now. The first one is the 3 Mile Harbor Affordable Housing Complex. Eric, you there? We only have a few pages. Thanks. Okay, very good. Lou, this is going to be on you. And again, I don't have everybody's. Let me just make sure that I have the folks from the housing, affordable housing group. There are a lot of names, I know. Who is going to be the lead speaker on behalf of the housing, affordable housing? Ms. Casey, is that going to be you?
Yes, I'm happy to answer any questions. We do have most of the team on.
Yeah, I can see that.
Stuff, yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, Eric, why don't you lead us in this one?
Okay. Can you guys hear me? I'm not totally sure you can.
Yeah, we could hear you.
Okay. A public hearing was held on September 22nd and left open for written comments until the 29th. You had 11 members of the public speak at the hearing, as well as the director of the East Hampton Housing Authority, which is a sponsor of the project. You also received 10 letters and emails. A number of people did speak at the hearing in support of the project. However, the majority of the speakers, though most stating they were not opposed to affordable housing in principle, had serious concerns over the potential adverse impacts of the project as it is currently proposed. Although the board is encouraged to rewatch the hearing and read all of the written comments submitted to the file, we will briefly summarize them as follows. The first issue is density. The applicants are proposing a total of 50 units. The maximum allowable under the code for any one development is 60. The yield under the code is 8 units per acre, which would in theory allow 114 units on this property, but again, it's capped at 60. And the fact that they're including sewage treatment would allow them to get a much higher number of units, but again, the cap is 60, they're at 50. Concerns over traffic. There was concern that the 50-unit complex was too large. Also that turning movements at the access roads intersection with 3 Mile Harbor Road would be dangerous. And there were concerns over the potential impact of additional traffic on neighboring residential areas, particularly Harbor View Avenue. The Springs Fireplace Road corridor study had estimated between 20 to 25 additional vehicular trips at peak hour would occur as a result of the proposed project. That was done basically concurrently with the applicant's initial submission. The applicants did submit a comprehensive traffic impact study. That study indicated a maximum peak hour number of trips as 35, which would be at the Saturday peak hour. This is additional traffic, but the traffic impact study did ultimately find that there would be no significant adverse impacts on existing traffic patterns. An attorney representing neighbors recommended that a left-hand turn lane be added to 3 Mile Harbor Road in the southbound direction for vehicles trying to turn into the facility. It was noted by the sponsor for the project that Suffolk County intends to begin the process of redesigning 3 Mile Harbor Road in the spring of next year. Until these plans are finalized, it will not be known if adding a turning lane will be feasible or necessary. The planning department notes, though, that the Suffolk County Department of Public Works coordinated with the town before it began work on Springs Fireplace Road, which has basically been completed. And it's anticipated that they will do so for 3 Mile Harbor Road as well. We agree with the attorney's comment that a turn lane would improve safety and aid in traffic flow. But this is probably an issue that is pending the county's review to be resolved. The proposed project will most likely increase through traffic on Harbor View Avenue. However, it would not seem that these increases would be a significant volume. As we noted, the maximum number of peak hour vehicular trips is anticipated to be 35. However, a portion of these trips would intend to head westward. The portion of these trips to head westward would have no reason to utilize Harbor View Avenue. Additionally, vehicles heading south, southeast, for example, East Hampton Village, would most easily do so by turning south onto 3 Mile Harbor Road, also not utilizing Harbor View Avenue. The board should note, though, that there is a multiple business complex, including retail stores, takeout food stores, etc., at the opposite end of Harbor View Avenue. That would be Quick Stop and an additional pizza place. Everybody who lives in Springs knows that. This will almost certainly result in additional through traffic on Harbor View. We do note, though, there is also a retail store, a deli, at the corner of Sokides Road and 3 Mile Harbor Road, which is a shorter distance and which would not require the use of Harbor View Avenue. Concerns were raised over groundwater and the presence of public water. A number of comments were received stating that the applicant should be required to extend public water down Harbor View Avenue. The Suffolk County Water Authority has not required this as part of their review of the proposed project. An agent for the applicant stated that as part of the proposed project, water mains will be extended roughly 600 feet up Harbor View, which will allow at least 2 residences to connect to public water immediately upon completion of the project. Ostensibly, the reasoning for requiring public water would be if the generated sanitary flow from the proposed project could potentially adversely impact the private wells on the residences of, adjacent sites and those on Harbor View. The sanitary leaching field for the affordable housing complex is proposed in the southwestern portion of the lot, placing it as far as possible from the majority of the residences on Harbor View. Leaching pools are proposed at elevations ranging from 38 feet to 43 feet above sea level, whereas the majority of the adjacent residences are at a higher elevation. Additionally, being within the 3 Mile Harbor watershed, groundwater in this area can be expected to flow generally westward away from Harbor View. The proposed sewage treatment plant will further reduce the potential for adverse impact as it is more efficient at reducing nitrogen output than current low nitrogen individual sanitary systems. The issue of clearing was raised by members of the public. Total clearing is proposed at roughly 243,000 square feet, whereas 80,000 square feet is the maximum allowable on any residentially zoned property of a certain size, this one included. However, clearing in excess of this amount is permitted in association with a site plan special permit application if the planning board grants that approval. Although this quantity of clearing is proposed in order for construction and regrading of the site, the applicants do propose to replant nearly the entire area around the periphery of the housing complex with either native deciduous forest species or a pollinated garden. The areas of the pollinated garden represent roughly 59,000 square feet. The lot totals 622,738 square feet in lot area. The resultant area to remain natural and totally uncleared, this is not including landscape areas or the areas of the pollinated gardens, is 349,738 square feet, or roughly 56%. Screening. Public comments were received that questioned whether the proposed screening along both the northern and southerly property lines is adequate. What I'd like to do is stop my screen share briefly so that I can call up the landscaping and screening plan, which I will do now. Hopefully you can see that now. A row of 5 to 6 foot tall eastern red cedars is proposed along the northern property line, which should be able to be seen in the, the center of your screen here. And a row of 3 foot to 4 foot tall evergreen barberry, along with an 8 foot tall chain link deer fence, is proposed along the southern property line. We note that eastern red cedars can grow to a height of roughly 50 feet, whereas the evergreen barberry on the southern side typically does not exceed 10 feet in height at full maturity. The planning board should discuss whether or not any further screening is warranted as mitigation. The planning department attached to their memorandum a map which includes the partial site plan overlaid on a 2021 aerial photograph, along with existing topography at 5 foot intervals. We note that the shortest distance between any of the roughly 30 foot tall apartment units proposed and the neighboring property line is 141 feet. In between the two is a vacant lot with roughly 50 foot to 60 foot tall oaks of various species. So in conclusion, the board should discuss the public's comments and determine whether or not they have been adequately addressed, and if any additional conditions of approval or changes are required as mitigation for the concerns that were raised.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for that very thorough review of the public comments, and there were quite a few. Ms. Casey, do you wish to add anything?
No, I'm just here to answer questions. I think Eric, as usual, covered everything.
Very well. Okay, Lou.
Yeah, I really like this project, and I want to thank the applicant because I think we've made.
Thank you, you're right talking about it.
Someone's.
Okay. Yeah, I think someone's microphone may have been on.
Yeah, excuse me. This is Mike from LTV. If everyone listening could please mute themselves unless they're actively engaged in the conversation. Thank you. Continue, Lou.
Okay.
Yeah, I think affordable housing is very important. So I'm very glad that this project is going up. And I think the applicant has done a great job. I mean, we've made changes from the way it was first presented. The configuration of the buildings, the parking, location of the parking, the pollinated field, the path, the lighting. I think the applicant has really gone out of his way to accommodate the planning board and build the best project that can be built. So my comments really are more with addressing, which I think is just as important, addressing some of the concerns that the surrounding residents have voiced at the public hearing. A few of them, I'm not sure I agree. Sorry. Hold on. Sorry about that. with regard to the buffer, it seems to me that on the southern side with the barberry shrubs and the that whole space dedicated to the parking, to me it seems that that's plenty of a buffer to the sand pit. I don't, I'm always for adding a buffer, and I don't know how you could do more than what's being done on that southern side. But in my opinion, I think it's adequate. I think it's even more adequate on the northern side. I mean, you've got the 74 red cedars that can grow up to 50 feet, plus you've got that additional lot in between. So I don't see a problem with the buffering, but I'm open to ideas if anybody else on the board thinks they have any. With regard to Harbor View Avenue, I don't know if there's anything that we can do, but I was really very sympathetic with the residents that brought up the issue about the water main. I mean, the water main is going to be extended 500 or 600 feet. So a few of those residents will be able to tap into public water. But, and I know the applicant said that, one way for the rest of that street to get extend the water main is to petition the Suffolk County Water Authority. But if there's anything that we could do or the applicant can do, I think that would be great. And I think it's the residents on Harborview Avenue really deserve that kind of consideration. The other thing that I was sympathetic to is that I think that street is going to get increased traffic because it's a throughway between 3 Mile Harbor and the other, what's the other street? I can't think of it now. Fireplace Road. So I think if there's anything that we could do or the applicant could do or the town that would be able to repair that street, I think that would go a long way to accommodating the needs of those residents. I do agree with the, hopefully the redesign on 3 Mile Harbor will allow for that left-hand turn. I think that's a good idea, and it should be put in place. So in summary, I think the project is a good one. I think everything has been done to accommodate the board's requests. I'm all for the project, the affordable housing. I think we need it, but I think we should, if we can, address some of these other concerns with regard to the needs of the surrounding neighbors. That's all I have.
Thank you, Lou. That was also very comprehensive and thoughtful, and I appreciate it. I know the board does. I think this is an important enough application that I should just give everybody on the board an opportunity to weigh in. I'm starting on the right, on my right, with Sharon again. So go ahead, Sharon. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think Lou, pretty much summed it up well. I agree with a lot of what he said. And I too am sympathetic for the Harborview, street dilemma. It is a paved road, so, I have been on it myself. It's not unpaved. But I don't know if we're limited because it is also a private road. When you buy on private roads, you get kind of stuck with some of these things on your own. But just having had experience on my street in Springs years ago, the neighbors did get together and, petition the Suffolk, Water Authority to get mains in the neighborhood. And they got it to happen. So that is an avenue for them. And maybe, I don't know if they can get guided in that process or not. But, I think it is a good project, and hopefully, the road does get improved, that gets a turn lane. And I too agree that I think the buffer is sufficient. I've thought about it, and, obviously at the beginning, the trees will not be as high, but they will grow in and get taller. And I think as I've seen these other projects, get older, you sort of slowly see them disappear. And this one is set pretty far back. And I think it's a good project, and I vote to move on with it.
Very well. Thank you, Sharon. Randy? Randy?
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Okay.
I pretty much agree with Lou and Sharon. My family had a farm on Town Lane, and the housing authority built a 50-unit complex next door, and we were all very worried about it. But I did find that that the lighting is incredibly important, and so I would just say again that the planning department, that we make sure that all of the lighting, especially on the north side, is shielded, and that it's not going to shine toward the neighbors to the north. The traffic, I agree with the idea, the suggested idea of a left turn lane heading south, but I also think there's an issue with people coming out of this complex and making a left turn. During the summer, it's not easy to cross a lane of traffic and make a left turn to go south, which is probably what most people are going to want to do. So I don't know how we get, I'd like to think that the applicants, engineers, and that the county, that there really be a serious effort here to coordinate this access, both coming out of the complex and also the existing traffic on 3 Mile Harbor Road, to really think about ways to mitigate any traffic impacts with design and how they build the road. I don't know what we can, I know that the applicant wants to do that, but I don't know if there's some way we can give it a little extra push to, to say that the applicant agrees that they will meet with the Suffolk County Engineers, Department of Transportation, and the town board to discuss various traffic mitigation measures at the intersection with 3 Mile Harbor Road. The bit about Harbor View, it's a double-edged sword. If you improve that road, right now it's got sort of built-in speed bumps. And if you make that a very easy to travel road, you're probably going to encourage more people to use it as a bypass between the two roads. But I did read the concerns from the neighbors, and I think the water main is easier to do than the paving. It's really a town board issue. The town board has agreed in some cases to take on private roads and improve them, bring them up to the highway spec, and take them into the town highway system. I suppose we could encourage the town board to take a look at Harbor View for possible inclusion in the town highway system. I would be in favor of that. The water main, it seems like the extension they're doing combined with a petition would be a good way to get more water up there. I'm persuaded by the applicants and Eric's discussion of the sewage treatment plant that the plant is on the other side from those neighbors, and it's going to treat It's going to treat the water to, a pretty good level, both in terms of any adjacent wells and also in terms of 3 Mile Harbor water quality. So I think the water issues are really handled well by that treatment plant. The screening, I feel like the screening is pretty good, but I don't like that we're relying on this vacant lot. And I still feel that as part of the mitigation of this, and this could be possibly a town mitigation, that lot 122,718, which Eric mentions in his memo, has 60-foot oaks on it. But if we're going to rely on that to screen the neighbors, right now it's privately owned and it can be developed into a house somehow. Looks pretty tight. I think that the acquisition of that as mitigation to add to the open space on this site would be a really good mitigation here. Would help the neighbors. They wouldn't have a new neighbor at any point, and they'd have that existing forest in shape. And probably I'd go so far as to say all those vacant lots on the south side of Harbor View, that would all be good mitigation for this community that's accepting this 50 units here. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. I'm still a little uncomfortable with the attractive nuisance of the gravel pit, and I've walked this site. I don't know whose responsibility that really is, though. Is that, the pit owner has a certain amount of responsibility to prevent neighbors or children from coming into the pit or falling into the pit, and all the dirt bikes the neighbors raised the whole question about dirt bike usage. I'm not sure that's our responsibility, but I do wonder if maybe the applicant could talk a little bit about the management of the open space areas. How do they see managing the half of the site that's left in open space? So that's it for me.
Thanks, Randy. Kathy? You there, Kathy?
Yeah, I am. Sorry, I was muted. I agree that this is a needed project. It's an important project. I think Randy's suggestion to add those lots on the south side of Harbor View, the north side of the project itself, to for as open space acquisitions to buffer that residential community even further, and to guarantee that nothing will be built there, I think would be a great assurance to those folks. I'm very sympathetic to the folks on Harbor View with respect to all the problems that they anticipate with this. I think they're fair questions, but most of them are not within our purview to address or to resolve. But I think it would be a helpful, it would be useful for us to approach the town board about the open space acquisitions, as Randy suggested. I thought that was a really good idea. And also to ask the applicant if they can submit a management plan for the open space, because I too worry about that attractive nuisance. It's not something we can, insure against. Kids want to get into places, they do, but I feel like we should be more proactive in knowing what management practices are in place. I think the lighting is very important. That is something that, you've got a lot there that's empty. And the light is, I mean, just even the light from the trees that will be removed is going to be a change in the general ambient light of the place. I would ask the applicant also to reassess the efficacy of the rain gardens and the various mitigations that we've asked them to put in. And again, I want to thank them for working with us on this. But after a year or two or three, see how those things are working, because the land is so pitched in the westerly direction, which is toward the harbor there. I think that would be a useful reassessment to conduct to make sure things are working as we anticipate they will, but sometimes they don't, and that adjustments should be made to that plan, because I think the concerns that were raised about the health of the harbor there and the soakhydrines in particular are valid ones. And regarding the traffic on Harborview, if it's a private road, can't they just make it one way or something? I mean, can they bar traffic on there? Because I think it's a legitimate concern that people are going to go down there. And if the neighbors that live on that street were not, sometimes you build your house on a dirt road because you don't want people to have access to it. And, I would suggest to the owners there that they investigate ways to limit traffic on that street, because it is a through street. I don't know what's available to them. But if they own the road, then they should have some influence over that. And I think that they should petition the Suffolk County Water Authority for water, but I think they should also ask the town to help them with that. I think that's a fair request. I was very moved by the testimony given by many people that live on that road who said the water wasn't even drinkable. I mean, that seems terrible to me. So this particular application may or may not have an influence on that. If it's, there's only X amount of water. So anyway, I think that's it. I think that's it for me.
Well, thanks very much. Ian.
Yeah, I largely agree with the previous board members. I think the real issues here, I'm sympathetic, like the other board members, to the Harborview residents, and, I've heard and read their comments. I guess I've got a question for Eric concerning that. The screening on the north side, I know there's a row of red cedars that will be quite substantial. Is there a way to double those up or have a true evergreen block? I know there's the vacant parcel in between that, I've been to the property as well. That'll do some good, but this property is elevated above that street, and even with, full cutoff lighting, I think anything we can do to protect that northern boundary would be great. And I just wonder if there's a way to do a double row, or if there's not space, or in Eric's expert opinion, if he thinks that this single row is substantial enough.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you add more, you're going to get screening. Obviously, I mean, you can see on the plan there that you do have room for, you could double up that row, you could triple up that row and stagger it, and you'd get, a heavier evergreen screening. Obviously, the areas right now, the remaining areas between that row and the property line is deciduous woods. It's pretty easy to see through, especially during the winter, but even during the summer. So that would provide a lot of additional mitigation. I did attach, I'm sorry I don't have it readily available right now, but I did attach to the memo for all of you an overlay of the topography, because it was brought up multiple times that, this would be looming over the areas to the north. That's not really the case. The property is pretty uniformly pitched, basically uphill from 3 Mile Harbor Road to the center of the site where they're proposing the development, and then pitches more gradually back to the east. But the properties to the north and the south, with the exception of the sand pit, which obviously has been substantially excavated, they basically follow the same topographical contour lines. Now, obviously, the applicants are proposing significant regrading, but it actually actually, if you look at the grading plan, the existing range in elevations, basically from where the first building would be to the rear of the two buildings there, it would actually be lower and basically flattened, so it would be less gradual. So I don't know that, you could truly say that it's looming over the property line. That being said, additional screening certainly would help, but, Randy originally brought up the lighting. We did obviously look at there's a comprehensive site lighting plan. It meets all of the standards of the town code as well as the planning board standards. If you remember, I know at least once the applicants were asked to change the lighting that they proposed in the parking area to be basically half of what they had originally proposed, so that would meet the board standards. And if you recall, if you look at the screen, originally the applicants had proposed parking along the northern side that would point, this is not true permanent exterior lighting, but the parking spaces were designed to point northward towards the residences. And you guys discussed that with the applicants, and they rearranged it so that there was no parking facing in that direction, so that you couldn't have, headlights negatively impacting any of the residences to the north. So obviously more is better and would help, but I don't know that well, I'll put it this way. I can't say that what they've proposed right now is inadequate. I think there's a substantial distance to the neighbors to the north. I think that's a pretty, robust, line of evergreen vegetation. Again, these are trees that grow very tall. They're already proposing them at, roughly 6 feet. So yeah, it would be better, but I don't know that it's totally necessary. You don't have any lighting here that's going to be particularly high. About 25 feet would be, the windows of these units, which again isn't truly exterior lighting. But so I guess again, just to reiterate, it would be better. There's room for it. So if you as a board feel it's necessary, it would be a good thing. But I don't know that I feel that it's absolutely necessary.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Well, I would just say that, look, this is a big project. This is a big change. I, like the rest of the board, am supportive of affordable housing. This is zoned for it. I will say that I abstained on that vote because it is such a big move and we only had one opportunity to look at it. But considering this is now zoned for affordable housing, it's something we need. I want to go forward, but I do really appreciate the concerns of the Harborview residents. And I would be in favor of having a condition of approval that we have a staggered double row of red cedars on that northerly side. I won't touch on all the other issues because I largely agree with the other board members. The only other thing I would say is the Harborview traffic. I do see that being a potential issue, and I would support wholeheartedly either their right to make that private truly and closed to public, or support the town adopting that into the highway system and bringing it up to speed. I don't know if, to Randy's point, if that's something the residents would want or wouldn't, but I would like to bring this to the attention of the town board. They changed the zoning here. It's a big project that could affect this neighborhood. I think we should do everything we can to integrate it as seamlessly and as possible. As far as the water goes, I don't think that's particularly the concern of this project, but if we're talking about potentially potential road improvements and other things, I again would include in that letter to the town board that, we try to address this since there's stuff work going on anyway. If the residents want water and there's a way to somehow coordinate that with other work that might be going on, I think that we should at least alert the town board to that, even though they might already know. Lastly, Randy's idea of acquiring that buffer property, I think, is a great one. Again, we need affordable housing. I support this project, but I do want to try to mitigate the impacts to the neighbors, and I think that would be a fantastic way to do it, and also provide some space for a trail that kind of runs to this project to still exist and be available to that community. So with that said, I support the project, and I do hope that we can make a condition of approval to have a double staggered row of red cedars on the north side.
All right, thanks very much, Ian. And Ed.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was muted. Yeah. So bringing up the rear here, most of what I would have said has been said, so I'm not going to repeat everyone else on this, but like the rest of the board, I really sympathize with the residents of Harborview. It's a big project. I absolutely support affordable housing in this project in particular, but this is definitely an impact on the neighborhood. I think we've talked about other county and town agencies that might be involved in decisions that relate to turning lanes and county water and those sorts of things. And I encourage us to communicate to the town board our support of those kinds of solutions for those issues that are outside of our purview. I guess just to kind of bring it to the one thing that was sort of nagging me a little bit about the project is, the residents of Harborview live now in a very rural situation, right? Narrow road, lots of trees, that kind of stuff. And they're going to have this 50-unit development, which is large, right next to them. And kind of, I agree with Eric that doesn't seem topographically like this is going to loom over those properties. But nonetheless, I agree with Eric that, I agree with Ian that beefing up the buffer, the vegetative buffer, is a really smart idea here. And Randy's point about making sure that the lighting doesn't sort of interfere with the residents of Harborview is also really important, that we be sensitive to those two things in particular. I think Randy's idea about open space acquisition is a really good one, and I think that we should make that recommendation. That's it.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to make it unanimous. Look, affordable housing is, an overarching concern. It's one of the most important things that the town becomes involved with, and this application is going to address that to a very nice degree. Undoubtedly, it's going to impact the neighbors. I think that we should make a condition of approval, as Ed just called it, beefing up the screening on the north side. I'm concerned about that. I am glad that the siting of the buildings on the parcel has been achieved, so that I think over time it will fade into the neighborhood. As far as the traffic is concerned, my concern, I can see Harborview being a concern, but you go up Olympic Heights, I think there are a number of streets, just the slight ways north of there and up to, I think it's Abraham's Path, which I think are going to pick up a lot of traffic. But at the end of the day, I think that the local road network will be able to handle it. I would hope that's the case. The water main issue, I think, it's one of a number of issues that were raised by the public, and that public comment has been very useful in this discussion and in what I anticipate will be an approval. So with that, I think that we can, I can just say, as the application, so we all agree the application is ready for approval.
Sam, I just have one quick question.
If I missed the note, please.
The recommendation for acquisition of open space, is that a recommendation to the town or to the applicant?
Well, Randy, you raised it.
I think we discussed, I don't think the applicant has the budget for it. And I do think, as Ian put it, the town board made the decision to rezone this for affordable housing, and they do have a housing budget and they do have an open space budget. So I'd say it's a recommendation to the town board to get involved in the mitigation of this project in that way.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
Do we all?
I agree with that.
Everybody agrees on that?
Yeah, I think we do, but there were some other conditions, weren't there?
The two that I heard were that the screening be enhanced or beefed up, and that the lighting on the north side be addressed. I don't quite know how to deal with that in a resolution of approval. I could perhaps when that resolution is written and it comes before us, the planning department can put in some appropriate language. Is there anybody?
I mentioned that, and I think there already is a design of a single row of red cedars. I just think it's a staggered double row, so the same spacing, but a second row offset. I don't know the appropriate distance, but it's pretty clear they would double the number of trees. They would split, be split on center of the previous planting, offset to the appropriate degree. So,
and that would cover the lighting issue as well, I suppose.
It helps.
It would help screen it.
What
I think
else?
the lighting is dark
There's
side.
a specific lighting problem though with looking at the lighting plan.
I
No, I don't think so. I think Randy was just making the point, and I followed up on it, which I think your suggestion of the double row of cedars will help with, is just there's going to be, open space there where there once were trees, and that I think my recollection is that the project is dark sky compliant, so I don't think we have to worry too much about the manufactured light, but that the natural light, that there was more shade, there would be less of it, that I think that the double row of cedars will be helpful in that way, for that neighborhood to the north of it.
All right. Well, if you could put something into the resolution of approval that enhances the screening. Is there anything else that anybody would want to put into the resolution? Hearing none. Who's that?
It's Eric.
Eric, go ahead, Eric.
Just for the applicants, we do have 2 weeks until the next meeting. It's always better to have a plan submitted before you get the resolution of approval rather than do it as a condition. So if they could have those plans so that we could look at them and the planning board could look at them, and more importantly, the resolution could reference the updated plans that have the additional screening, that would be superior to just doing a condition of approval.
I agree. That way we know what we're approving. So that's fine. Ms. Casey, you can do that?
We can do. Sorry, I'm looking for my little.
I saw.
We can do that, but it was raised by one of the planning board members. We are on a budget. We are, we have an award for a fixed amount that's not flexible. That said, we can double up those cedars on the north side and do 2 staggered rows instead of 1 line of trees.
Okay, I think that'll be helpful. And as I say, it's one of those areas of the public comment raised, and I think it's appropriate to address that.
Sam, I have another suggestion. I don't know if it's possible, but instead of having the residents of Harbor View petitioning the Suffolk County Water Authority, is it possible if the applicant in its discussions with that agency that they bring it up and petition for that additional extension of the water main?
I'd like to speak to that. I don't think the state is going to increase the award to bring public water to private properties. I don't think that's lawful. I don't think that's possible. I would like to say that, the town did the Springs Fireplace Corridor study. They included Harborview Avenue in their request, their plea really, to have all of the private wells tested. There was a lot of reluctance. The town tried very hard. They did a very good job of reaching out. They literally went door to door and did mailings, urging people to have their wells tested. It's my understanding that a lot of people didn't want to have their wells tested for fear that the well would be condemned and they'd have to drill a new one. So that's, it's really outside of our scope. It's not in our budget. I don't see how we could get the state using affordable housing funds to make improvements on privately held property. That would, I don't see how that could happen, to be honest.
I have to agree with Kathy, and I think usually the Water Authority wants a petition of potential customers.
Mm-hmm.
They want a petition from people who say, if you extend, I'll hook up.
Mm-hmm.
Before they go and start spending money. All right. Does everybody agree? I'm assuming that there's no further comment. Is there? If not,
Sam, how do we handle the open space? In a letter to the board?
yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. If there's nothing else, do we all agree the application's ready for approval?
Yes.
Yes.
Very well. All right. Well, Ms. Casey, if you'll work with Eric on getting that screening together, and the next time we're together, I expect there'll be a resolution of approval for our consideration.
Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
Katie.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, I heard that slip before, but I wasn't going to correct.
I don't know why I keep doing
it. All right.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks very much, Katie. And now we're going to see a number of names click off of the screen, I am sure. So let's give them a moment to hang up. Okay, the next we have a couple more items for site plan review. The first one is actually preliminary review for the Springs Brewery. Sharon, you're on for the board on this, and Marco, you're the planning department point person. Can't get that out. And is this Ms. Wiltshire's application? Am I wrong on that?
Make sure she's available to
I see her
share
name
video.
there.
Yep, just 1 second.
Okay, thanks.
Lori Wiltshire, are you there?
There.
Hi, this is Gunnar from Springsbury. Lori said she was calling in, so she should be on, but
Chair, she's in the Zoom call. I'm prompting her to start her video, and her microphone is open.
Okay. Thomas, we're okay going forward, right?
I'm here.
Now we are. All right. Very good. All right. Go right ahead. There you go. Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay. Anybody else? Is there anybody else on this application?
Yes, my clients are on.
Right, I see that. Anyone else whose names I see there? No? Okay. All right. In that case, Marco, please go forward.
So this is a preliminary site plan application to change the use of a 2,680 square foot one-story frame auto repair shop to a brewery with a tap room, cold storage area, pantry, outdoor patio, and pallet storage. The parcel is zoned NB Neighborhood Business and is situated in Springs off of Springs Fireplace Road. It is located less than a quarter mile west of Acaponic Harbor and is adjacent to parcels also zoned Neighborhood Business. This is the aerial. This is the main parcel with the building. And these are the two parcels next to it, adjacent to it, also zoned Neighborhood Business. To the east would be Acaponic Harbor. The parcel is 10,900 square feet or so, and it proposes to utilize the two neighboring parcels, utilize the neighboring parcels of roughly 2,700 square feet for additional parking. The auto repair shop was granted site plan and special permit approval in 1994 and has been maintained as the approved use. So as mentioned before, the applicant's proposing to renovate the interior of that one-story structure to the brewery with a tap room and outdoor seating. A brewery is not a defined use in town code. However, the planning board has reviewed previous applications for a brewery, such as Montauk Brewery Site Plan, which is located in downtown Montauk. A letter prepared by then Senior Building Inspector Thomas Priato discussing the brewery use of Montauk Brewery has been attached to the memo. The operations of the subject brewery are not specified, and the site plan illustrates a cold storage room, pallet storage area, tap room with 20 seats, an outdoor seating area with 4 picnic tables. It appears that there are designated areas in which could be utilized for a tavern use, which is a permitted use in neighborhood business zoning. So in addition to the renovation of the existing structure, the applicant proposes to utilize those 2 neighboring parcels to the south for 12 parking spaces in this conceptual site plan that's already included those 2 parcels as one giant block. The 2 parcels are in separate ownership, also zoned NB neighborhood business, considered vacant with some mature oak trees. It appears that the lots serve as informal parking spaces for the neighboring business, Springs Pizza. If you look at the aerial, Springs Pizza is located in this building to the south, which is 62-3-23 in the Suffolk County tax map number. The pizzeria has not been reviewed as part of a previous site plan application and was granted a CO in 2008 for restaurant use. Upon formal submission, the applicant should provide a survey that depicts the site's existing and proposed coverage, including the separate lot areas of the 2 parcels. Neighborhood business zoning permits a maximum of 40% of building coverage and 70% lot coverage. The previously approved site plan has noted that the site will have a total coverage of 64.9%. The previously approved site plan. The town code states that the parking spaces shall be marked with a minimum width of 10 feet of length. Minimum width of 10 feet, a length of 18 feet, or 9 feet by 20 feet. If we go back to the plan, the conceptual site plan proposes a configuration of 19 parking spaces that are 9 feet by 18 feet, serviced by a one-way access lane. The spaces are substandard in size by the town code. Which is detailed in Chapter 255-11- width and illumination should be considered during site plan review. So all aisles within parking areas shall have a minimum width of 24 feet when it's at a 90-degree angle. As proposed, 10 spaces would have an aisle width of 21 feet. 9 spaces would have an aisle width of 20 feet, which is less than the minimum width of 24. It is recommended that the applicant provide a parking configuration that meets the town code upon formal site plan submission. Under the town code, the estimated number of spaces would be about 20 parking spaces. Similar to Montauk Brewery site plan, any square footage related to the brewery operations should follow the parking requirements as specified under manufacturing or industrial establishment. Tavern and bar is 2 per 3 persons, rated capacity plus 1 per employee. Manufacturing or industrial establishment is 1 space per 500 square feet of employee working space. So the comments from the fire marshal's office has noted that the additional information would be required for a determination regarding ADA compliance. As noted before, one of the lanes for the parking lot is a maximum of 19 feet and 7 inches wide. General fire safety standards require an unobstructed minimum width of 20 feet to the rear of the building. The application overall will need approval from the Office of Fire Prevention to ensure that the lots meet ADA accessibility and other fire safety standards. The entrance to the parking lot is proposed along Springs Fireplace Road, which is within the Suffolk County road right of way. Any improvements along those would need approval from the county. There is no sanitary information submitted. It is a preliminary site plan. The previous site plan approval indicate that the existing sanitary system is located to the southwest corner of the property and does not appear to be a low nitrogen system. As part of the site plan, as part of the town code requirements, the proposed site plan appears to increase the site parking requirements. Would require the approval of would likely require approval of a sanitary system upgrade to an IA system. If there's one not in there, probably most likely not. And approval from the Suffolk County, given the proposed use. So as a brewery, it is likely that the operations of the site would require a sizable amount of water use. And so such information for the existing and proposed sanitary flow, the drainage calculations should be submitted upon a formal site plan review. The proposed site plan, the proposed site of the development has been examined in the Springs Hamlet Report published in 2019 and adopted by the town of East Hampton. It is specifically mentioned and identified as the Fort Pond Boulevard neighborhood business area. The location was recommended a number of improvements listed in under a series of objectives, which is also attached to the memo as well. These objectives include the need to preserve the rural character of the community, improve water quality, reduce pollution to the harbor, improve walkability and functionality to the business areas that are located here. The Hamlet Report illustrates a possible development path in a series of phases. It's not intended to be a template, but for a functional and attractive redevelopment over time. It suggests policies and zoning such as the implementation of the Fort Pond Boulevard Overlay District and a shared parking ordinance. Such policies would require changes to the town code and further discussions with the town board, planning department, and the public. As a preliminary site plan, it will need ARB approval upon formal site plan review. The property is noted to be across the street west of the Springs Historical District. It's a type 2 action pursuant to SECRA, Chapter 128 of the Town Code. In conclusion, the preliminary application is to renovate an existing building for the proposed use that is not defined in the Town Code. The proposal is within areas that were given several recommendations and suggestions from the Springs Hamlet Report, which have yet to be implemented. Other aspects regarding the brewery operation, parking, and sanitary systems will need to be addressed upon a formal site plan submission.
Thank you, Marco, for that comprehensive report on this potentially potentially significant project. Ms. Wiltshire, would you like to speak on it?
No, actually, my clients are online. I know if you can have them tune in or have the person in control. I get them on camera and they can speak to you directly. And I'll be here to answer whatever questions.
However you want to do it, the time is yours to, respond.
No, they'd like to address you. So
go right ahead. You're welcome.
It's Gunnar Burke.
Yeah.
Gunnar Burke is the person that you're adding to the screen.
Okay.
And I'm Lindsay Reichert.
The floor is yours.
Yeah. So my name is Lindsay Reichert and this is Gunnar Burke. I grew up in Springs and so did my parents and grandparents. The shop is my dad's auto body shop, and I went to Springs School and graduated from East Hampton High School. And so a huge Springs really inspired my kind of trajectory in life. And I went to Fordham and lived in the city for many years, working on a lot of community projects and community-oriented architecture. I started a food co-op and also manage a community garden. And so the kind of community ethos of Springs has been something that's followed me my whole life. And Gunnar and I have, spent a lot of time in Springs. And as we were conceptualizing this brewery and starting to brew 6 years ago, we really felt like the history of Springs as a place of craft and art, but also as a very diverse and accessible place on the east end of Long Island, were all values that we wanted to represent in our beer, and particularly the local farms as well. And so as we've started our brewery, we've sought to incorporate as many local aspects of Springs in the area into our beer. We do our sales at the Springs General Store. We do a lot of community events with the children's benefits for the Children's Museum. And we work with local farms like Amber Waves and Quail Hill, and use also a lot of regional farm ingredients. And then on the outside of the cans, we work with local artists who I grew up with, and also new people that we've been meeting to design the can labels. And so I think, and then on top of that, we've also been using the beer sales as a way to support various social justice organizations in the area, including the Springs Food Pantry. And so we both actually work in architecture, and we love the shop as it is, but we also see the way that Springs is changing, and that there's the demand and also an opportunity to create a space that can act as a social condenser that brings the diverse people of Springs together over craft and local fare in a place that is kind of representative of the aesthetic future of that area.
Yeah, and Lindsay mentioned we both have backgrounds in architecture. I'm an architect, and we our kind of study of architecture is rooted deeply in sustainability. And I know that was a concern that came up that we will address in a more formal site plan, and as we continue to work through the design here. But the water treatment and water usage is very important to us, and we want to kind of use that to kind of set an example in the brewing industry as like how we can make this more sustainable. And then in regards to the kind of more specific issues regarding the parking and the drive aisles, we certainly hear those concerns and think we can work through them through things like I think diagonal parking for spaces 1 through 10 should help there, and then I think for spaces numbered 11 through 19 we certainly have the space to widen them, and then in terms of the number of spaces, we could reduce the number of seating in the tap room by 2, which would make 19 spaces, I think, meet the requirements. And then also, in terms of this site plan, it is still very conceptual, in particular the parking. We do look forward to kind of working with the town and the adjacent neighbors. I know in the Hamlet Report, the shared parking was a recommendation. It is not the code, we understand, but we think that could really, could help this project, as well as our potential neighbors, neighboring businesses, as well as the community in general, and the traffic patterns. So yeah, I think we look forward to kind of developing this further with the planning board, as well as the architectural board in the town further.
You understand that this is a preliminary site plan review, and the idea is for you to get input from the board and get a sense of how we would might well see it go forward. So Sharon, and I'm glad to hear you're, open to the things that have been suggested by the planning department. Now you'll hear from us. So, Sharon, go ahead. This is yours, right?
Yes, hi. No, I appreciate your narrative. And I too have brought my daughter up in Springs, and I think this would be a really nice addition. But it is a tight space, so I think in terms of a site plan, we've got a little bit of work to do. And so, I just have a couple of questions. I know some breweries don't have extended hours, so I was just curious if you've already thought about like what your hours would be, and then maybe it would help if you came up with a narrative on how you would run your business, and I didn't see whether you're actually brewing on the property. I mean, I see you have pallet storage and, some other or cold room, but so I think it would help us to know exactly what you intend to do there and what your hours might be, as one thing. And then, like I said, I think parking, obviously we've come up with a number of spaces that, through, I guess it was a tavern use that we used. So I think reducing the number of seats would help to just make it all fit. And, just having some experience with, going to Montauk Brewery and other places, I don't know. I think, you could find yourself needing a lot more parking spaces than this, but obviously we're working with the code here. And then I wasn't sure, is there public water here? I mean, where is the water going to come from?
It is
Are
public.
you on a well?
It's public.
It's public water. Okay.
Yes.
I do know. And so can you just answer, are you going to be brewing on the property?
Yes, we would be brewing.
Okay.
Yep.
So you'd be utilizing public water to do that. And I don't really have a lot more to say. I think, with the improved septic systems, that's probably going to be worked on. I think for me, the biggest thing is going to be how we can make this work with the parking, and then utilizing those two properties. I'm assuming you're going to give us a letter saying that they okay that use, and then also maybe just talking to your neighbors to making sure that they're okay with all that usage, and maybe them submitting letters to our file as well. It's a nice idea. I think for me, the biggest issue is going to be the parking. Yeah.
Particularly in an operation like this, you want to make sure that, you're able to accommodate the people, the customers in a safe way for them to come and go. So the parking, there's some inadequate spacing there, and I think you do need to address that. Does anybody else have anything they want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I just wanted, I was taken by Lindsay's narrative and giving us her background. And I was just thinking as she was talking, and this is sort of outside the realm of the technical aspects of the application, but I think it does matter in terms of what we approve and what we don't approve. Because the feeling I got, Lindsay and Gunnar, is that you would be an asset to the area. And I'm encouraged to see young people like yourselves working on something like this, on a craft, and building something from the start, from the beginning, and putting your heart into it. I really appreciate your aspirations, and I appreciate your sensibility towards it and towards the area. And that's what, hit home with me. And I hope that we can work out the technical aspects of the project with regard to parking and everything else to accommodate your project. Because I want you, just listening to you, I want you to succeed, because I think if you succeed, our area, the town of East Hampton, Springs, and everywhere else will be better off. So I just wanted to say that to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any words?
I'd like to add something.
Go
I
ahead,
mean, you know, just in general, I think it's a very, very compelling story. It's nice, you know, for a hometown kid to come back to her roots and, you know, make a nice business like this. I think a brewery is a great idea. The thing that worries me a little bit is it's the parking, but it's also the positioning of the building on the lot with the historic district across the street. I think that some screening, you know, the shared access with the parking, as I know the applicants are willing to explore with their neighbors. But I think that screening and you know, considering the historic district across the street, those criteria should enter into their thinking and how they're going to position the building and the parking on the lot, because it'll have an impact on that. So I just wanted to make sure that was.
Oh, Kathy, they're using the existing building. They're not building a new one. Okay.
I understand. I'm just saying, you know, it's still adjacent to a historic district, and those concerns should be considered.
You know that, you know, there is no category in the town code for breweries, so you're going to be pioneers in more than one sense as you go forward. And, you know, there'll need to be flexibility and, you know, consideration of various options as you go forward, you know, as to how this thing will go. But there are certain things, as Kathy just mentioned, you know, screening and other aspects of any site plan. You know, as you present the site plan and as it's developed, you know, it'll come into greater conformance with the planning board's objectives of, you know, making sure that this is a project that's done with good planning in mind. Does anyone else have anything they wish to add to help the applicant on this preliminary review?
Yeah, I do. Go ahead,
Ian. Ian, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to, I mean, obviously the point of a preliminary site plan is to get, you know, our opinion without going into all the details, because we don't quite have them yet. And so I just want to say that, you know, I support the application. I think it's a great idea. The concept I fully support. The applicant knows the applicants know that they'll have to meet health department standards, town code, all those things, parking, etc. So no need to go into the details now, but I think if they can do those things and meet our standards, that this would be a great asset to the community, and I look forward to the project moving forward.
Great. Okay.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else?
I just wanted to add my voice to
Go ahead.
Yeah, that you know, I think this is a really great use, and I really support what you're doing. I think it would be a great addition to the community, and I think you are well aware of what the challenges are. And I think, being architects, you kind of understand perhaps better than other applicants how to get around them. So I look forward to working with you on this. I do have just one question though. What is the state of your conversations with the neighbor about parking on that property? Is there, you've approached them obviously on this already? Maybe Marco said this in his analysis and I missed it.
Yeah, we've discussed it, and you know, we're looking to further that conversation kind of after this meeting. So
okay, so there's obviously he's open to this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's it.
All right. Very well. If there's anybody else who wants, Randy, you clicked on there. Go ahead.
I agree with what's been said. It's nice to see a new generation trying to have a business here and live here. I think overall, I mean, I think it's a fine idea. I think it's good in Springs, but I just think it's too tight. And with the pizza the pizza and the liquor store are next door, and I think there might even be a vacant storefront in there that Tim Lee used to use as his photo studio. So I don't know what's going on to the east of you there, or what it makes me think of is how could you spread out? I don't know if you're aware of the industrial park at the airport, but there's leases up there. For example, if you were going to brew up there, I don't know. It's just thinking about other space that could be incorporated into this. So spread out. That's my first reaction, is how can you spread out a bit?
Okay. You've got a lot of things to consider. So we'll, if there's nothing else, though, we will move on and look forward to seeing a site plan application and giving you more specific direction at that point. Ms. Wiltshire, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, very well. Okay, back into site plans that are ongoing. The first one we have is number 85 Rod Highway, LLC. That is, Ed, is yours, and Marco, and who's the applicant on that? Is that Ms. Shawn?
Good evening. This is Denise Shern. I'm the attorney for the applicant, and I also should have on with me his architects as well. Jim Taylor should be on if there are any architectural issues that need to be addressed.
Let me ask LTV, do you have, because I don't see Mr. Taylor on the line on the screen.
Excuse me, Chair. No, I do not.
Waiting?
Chair, no, I do not see anyone by that name in the Zoom feed, and there is only one person on the phone on hold, and that's for an upcoming cellular application. Mr. Taylor,
Okay.
I believe is the last name you said?
That's correct. Yeah.
Right, yeah, I don't see that. You're expecting him on Zoom?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If that person comes in during the discussion, I'll immediately let them in, but they're not presently there.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Very well. Okay, Marco, this one is yours, so go ahead.
Okay, just give me 1 second to pull up. I'll show the aerial first. This is in Wayne Scott. This has been reviewed a couple of times already in front of the planning board. So this was to construct the 1,600 or so square foot agricultural barn within a sanitary system, legalize the roughly 300 square feet chicken coop and existing agricultural fencing on an agricultural easement of about 260,000 or so square feet in Wainscott. The lot is unique because 70% of it is to be for an ag easement, which is going to contain the barn. The rest is to hold the residence, a scenic and conservation easement. Parcel zones A5 residents, and the ag easement was from 2016. So very simply, the applicant provided a narrative schedule of the agricultural work, photos of the barn, and a detailed booklet that details out the quantity and types of plantings to be planted in the easement. The barn is going to contain equipment used as part of the easement, as the ag operations. The field is to be tended by 3 to 4 workers during the spring and summer months. The applicant has stated that the agriculture and equipment is to be free of pesticides, chemicals, and non-certified organic compounds. The planning board requested comments from the town's agricultural committee. The committee, very similarly to another recent application for a similar barn, Twinkle Farm site plan. So similar to that application, the committee states that the proposed barn is reasonable in scope and scale for the proposed agricultural use. The members expressed support of the application, but raised concern of the whether or not an agricultural structure could be constructed if it's not part of a commercial business or enterprise. The committee encouraged the board to request an opinion from the planning board attorney. The planning board had done that for Tinkle Farm LLC site plan, which is located on 5 Green Hollow Road. And that copy of that one is attached to this memo. The applicant has submitted a sanitary plan that depicts the location of the low nitrogen system and dry wells. I'm going to put that on the screen. The sanitary plan's title should be revised to note that the system is for an agricultural barn, not for a private residence. The sanitary plans will require approval from the Suffolk County. And in conclusion, the applicant should just submit those revisions, and the planning department recommends the board obtain an opinion from the planning board attorney. I think Thomas can speak to that very simply regarding the question raised by the Ag Committee, and that's all.
Excuse me, Chair, if I could interrupt. Mr. Taylor's joining the Zoom now.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Shawn, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know that I have too much to add to Marco's memo. We were able to submit the requests that he's made, but it just didn't make it into the memo that you have before you. So the final version of the plan should be in the planning board's file at this point. And I understand that the planning board's attorney also did issue a memo directly on point with regard to this application, also finding that the barn was an appropriate use on the site and was consistent with the town code.
Okay. In that case, Ed, go right ahead.
Yeah, so we've reviewed this several times, as Marco pointed out. We've had a lot of conversation about this. So Thomas, just to be clear, we are absolutely clear that this meets the definition for commercial or business enterprise.
Right. Yes, I did a memo that's I think I already sent it to Marco and Eric, but it's very similar to the memo for the Twinkle Farm memo. Same conclusion. The facts are a little different here, obviously, but it's the same analysis, same conclusion.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I saw the Twinkle Farm memo. I didn't see one that applied to this, so I just wanted to be clear about that. Yeah, I am sort of of two minds about this. On the one hand, the Ag Advisory Committee supports this, and like them, I feel like it's a good thing that the applicant is looking to put these prime agricultural soils to use in agriculture. There are a lot of properties around the town, as we all know, that have ag easements on them where there's not food production happening. So certainly I'm happy to see that this is going to be farmed, and not a riding ring like it's been in the past or some other use. So I'm sort of happy for that. I do, these easements were really kind of designed for public benefit. And, while I understand that, more food is going to be produced here than the homeowners can use, and that their intention is to give the rest of it away, still it doesn't quite meet that, to me, it's not quite in line with the intention of that program going back historically. But that is what it is, right? And this is kind of the world that we live in right now, where people can afford to have, farms like this of their own. And I guess the one thing I want to sort of be clear about is how screened, because one of the wonderful things about this part of Wainscott, obviously, are the vistas across the fields, right? And, I think we all know that there are, other properties, notably in this area, particularly on Town Line Road and elsewhere, that, where the views have been obscured by hedges and those kinds of things. How screened in is this going to be? As you're driving down, you can currently see from Main Street, where you used to be able to anyway, see across this property. Is this going to be pretty well screened in? Is that the intention? Denise?
Sorry, I wasn't sure who should answer. So at this point, and actually for many years now, the property has been really well screened in there were two, spec houses that were built right in front of it. Yeah, that's right, Marco. Those two right there.
Right.
Shortly after my client purchased the property. And so when we went through the zoning board process to set this up and to create this ag easement, there was actually a request for us to screen the property from the neighbors at the time. So that's why you see the green, sort of evergreens there. Not only did the neighbors themselves put them in, but then they wanted the additional screening, which is sort of that second row. I'm pointing like you can see me, but
yeah, I can see where you're talking about. Who made that request?
The neighbors at the time when so this application took I think it was a good 2 or 3 years because we were asking for a variance to keep the historic structure there, one of the oldest homes on Long Island, and then also enable him to build his own home. And so to counterbalance that request, we proposed this easement to the town. So that's why it's tailored differently than you might see a regular agricultural easement in connection with a subdivision, because we didn't actually subdivide this property.
Right.
But we were able to keep the secondary residence. But it was unique in the sense that people did not want to see our farm. They wanted to not see the farm. That was the clear message that we got throughout the process
Right.
by the neighbors.
I know that's unfortunate. I like to see farms personally. But listen, we've spent a lot of time talking about this. I think, the issues really work. Does this meet the definition of a commercial or business enterprise? It's been determined that it does. The Ag Advisory Committee is supportive that the size of this barn is appropriate for the kinds of farming activities that are going to take place on the property. So, I think, with that, I think we move forward.
Well, we do have to deal with, or I guess the planning department has to deal with the sanitary, right?
Well, I think it's just a matter of titles on the sanitary, Marco.
Well, they updated the sanitary.
Yes, it's a matter of titles.
I'm sorry. Am I wrong on this? Did the applicant update their sanitary plans, or is it just a matter of the title that we have to worry about?
They submitted a sanitary plan, and it just needs to have a revised title. And I believe they have done so, in that they recently submitted it. So I have to take a look at that, and that's it.
Okay. So does the applicant need to come back on that?
Yes. We'll review that. We'll bring it back to the next meeting. At that point, the board can deem it complete.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any comment? Thank you, Ed, by the way, that this is I share your feeling about being able to see the farms, but that's I guess they're meeting their neighbors' concerns. Does anybody else have anything they want to add on this particular application?
Sam, I would just say I agree with Ed that I think there's some serious mission drift from the original program in town to try to set aside ag land for agricultural use, and that this is not what the original idea was. And I think actually it would have been better if this had been subdivided and a separate ag reserved area had been set aside. So I disagree with the zoning board's issuing of the variances, but I agree at this point it's pretty far down the road. The only thing I could think of is the drawings show the septic system going out into the ag land, and I'm wondering if there's any reason that they can't go under the proposed parking area. with, traffic bearing slabs on.
Well,
It's a question for
you have a suggestion on that, or is that a rhetorical question? Or?
No, if possible, if they could move the proposed septic system back to the south and under the proposed parking area, which appears to be already concrete, that would utilize less of the prime ag soils.
I think we can do, I'm not the engineer, obviously, but I think that can be accomplished. I know that we've gone through that process before with the health department, and it does require a covenant and I think some extra fees. But other than that, they do allow for your septic to go under your parking area now. It used to be you needed a variance, but now they'll take it, I think, with the fee and the covenant. So it does cost the applicant extra money, but you're right, it would save the use of prime ag soils based on where it is right now. But again, I'll have to defer to the engineers just to make sure I'm not misspeaking, and it can't go there for some reason that I'm not aware of. But as far as I can tell, I don't see a reason why it couldn't be relocated there.
Okay. Great.
Well, is that something that you want the applicant to look at with the planning department? Do you think that should be? They're gonna have to come back anyway. Is that something else that should be dealt with at our next meeting?
Yeah, if it would require a revision to the plan. If Denise finds out it's possible, they'd have to.
How does the applicant feel about that?
I don't mind at all coming back to your next, whatever meeting it happens to be, the next meeting with a revised plan, as long as it can be done. And if not, then I'll obviously explain to the board why it couldn't be accomplished. But I have no problem, looking into that.
If it can be done, I think it would be great.
Okay. That's what we'll do.
All right, great. Okay, does anyone else have anything they'd like to add on this one before we wrap it up?
I just want to add my voice to the concerns that Ed has raised, and Randy's point about mission creep here, or whatever we're calling it, that particularly that the public views are no longer available, and that was one of the goals of these ag easements. I want to thank the applicant for working with us on this, and also I think Randy's suggestion of the preserving the ag soils by putting the septic under the driveway there is a great idea, or the parking area. But I think we should, think about this a little harder and maybe see if there's some way to suggest to the town board that there's better ways to manage these ag easements. I really find it ironic that we've saved all this land and now it's just, it's like one other thing that's just become absurdly precious and not available to, for the reason it was developed. I think we need to think about that and send something to the town board about it. That's it.
All right. Anyone else? If not, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Sean, and applicant, Mr. Taylor. Thanks very much. Okay, next one is 92 South Euclid. And that again is Marco and Sharon. You're on the board for this, and
I have a disclaimer to make. The applicant's representative is my son-in-law, and I feel I can be fair and equitable in my treatment of this application.
Very good. Meaning that the applicant's representative is Mr. Strong. So
yes.
Okay.
In so many ways.
Okay. All right, Marco, please go ahead.
All right, just gonna pull up the plan right now. So it should be on your screen soon. So this was an application that has been proposed to construct a 2-story, 1,058 square foot commercial building with a second floor affordable apartment and basement. The site is located on a vacant lot on South Euclid Avenue in downtown Montauk. It's currently vegetated, zoned CB. It's to consist of a 1,058 square foot first floor dry retail, a same size for the apartment on the second floor, and a 945 square foot basement. So the applicant has submitted a revised site plan to address the issues identified by the planning board and to account for the variances that were granted by the zoning board of appeals. Previous site plan elements that were discussed include the placement of the sidewalk to the north, setbacks that were not in keeping with the town code, parking within the right-of-way, and other planning elements that are discussed a little bit further below. The initial proposed application required the approval of 2 variances from the zoning board of appeals for parking 3 spaces within the right-of-way where on-site parking is required, and for a side yard setback variance of 7 feet, reducing to 3 feet where 10 feet is required. The planning board had provided comments to the zoning board expressing their support for the parking in the street right-of-way, and stating that there was no objection towards the applicant in applying for a side yard setback variance. Upon review, the zoning board members expressed that the applicant should design the building to be longer and narrower, and to mitigate the loss of an existing street tree that is proposed to be cleared. A ZBA determination was granted in August 2021, so this past summer, where the application was granted a variance to allow 3 parking spaces in the right-of-way and a variance of 3 feet to allow the building to be located 7 feet from the eastern lot line, where 10 feet is normally required. A copy of that determination is attached to the memo. The applicant has revised the proposed sidewalk to specify the color of the concrete and to include notation that demonstrates it would align with the neighboring parcel to the north. It is noted that the building coverage and total lot coverage listed on the proposed survey and sanitary plans are inconsistent in regards to square footage calculations. It's a very simple amendment. The applicant should just submit a revised proposed survey or sanitary plan, either or, including the allowed and proposed coverage calculations. Comments from the Chief Fire Marshal Dave Brown stated that the application is ADA compliant and is adjacent to public water and fire hydrants that provide adequate water supply for firefighting purposes. The applicant has submitted a revised lighting plan that demonstrates the fixtures are within the town's lighting policy. The existing street trees on South Euclid Avenue are noted to be Japanese elm trees. The Zoning Board of Appeals, as a condition of approval, for their approval, requests that the applicant provide a street tree to replace those lost during construction. I'm going to actually pull it up here. If I can click on it, I'll just zoom in. The applicant has a plan that consists of native plantings and 2 flowering dogwood trees as the replacement. The board may wish to discuss if the proposed flowering dogwood trees would be sufficient. The planning department recommends a notation on the landscaping plan that denotes that the dumpster enclosure will be screened with a 6-foot high fencing as per the planning board's policy. In conclusion, the applicant should submit a revised landscaping plan, a revised survey or sanitary plan to the planning board.
All right, Marco, thank you very much. Andrew Strong, would you like to respond on that?
Sure. I think, this site plan application has traveled a long road to get to this position. I think the comments from the town planner are comprehensive, but they reflect that there are some relatively minor issues to address, but our clear objective tonight is to try to get those resolved and move towards a public hearing. We now have zoning board approval, and we've tried very hard to work with the planning board through a challenging application process to get to this point. So just very quickly, we're to address the issues that the town planner has called out with the 3 questions. We're more than happy to submit a revised survey to address any inconsistencies in coverage calculation. That's absolutely no problem. We're happy to obtain an updated approval from the Office of Fire Prevention. That's a prudent thing. With respect to the dumpster enclosure and the stockade fence, we have designed the site to have robust vegetation around the dumpster on the basis that we'd rather have a nicely vegetated scene than a stockade fence, which is an aesthetic choice. And it's one that, we'd ask the board to consider. It's certainly not a deal breaker, but it seems like a nicer way to present a building than to have a bunch of stockade fences. So that's really the only comment that we have. And I'll leave it to the board to see if they have any other issues they want to bring up, which we can address with the intention again to try to get to a public hearing.
Very well. Thank you very much for that straightforward response. Sharon.
Yeah, no, it sounds like, the zoning board has spoken, so they've had to do a little redesign. And no, I don't have really much to say. It looks like whatever is outstanding is just, small sort of housekeeping type items. The only comment that sort of jumped out at me was that the street has Japanese elms on it already. So I love flowering dogwoods, but I was just wondering if there should be some consistency there. And I'm open to anything really, if anybody else has a strong opinion about that. I think if you show us the landscaping around the dumpster, I'm open to that if the board is as well, to just eliminating the stockade fence.
Very good. Does anybody want to add anything to this? It sounds like we're pretty close to unanimous on everything with the applicant. Anybody else? Hearing none. We will look forward to.
What about the dumpster?
Well, I mean, it sounds like Sharon is saying, bring us a new plan with something other than a stockade fence, and we'd be amenable to it. Is there anybody who wouldn't be amenable to that?
Well, I think that the memo says we should ask for a stockade fence. The applicant's saying they think the vegetative screening already is enough. I just think we should say whether we think we lean one way or the other. Do we think?
I think Sharon is suggesting that the landscaping is enough. Am I wrong, Sharon?
No, I'm leaning towards the vegetation and not stockade,
Right.
but I would like to see the rendering and make sure that we feel like that's enough.
Same.
Yeah.
Marco, can you point out where the dumpster is on the site plan? I see. So the screening.
So it would be in the rear, and that's the little town alleyway, and the parking spaces are located here. The front is obviously I guess in this position to the left.
Is that an entrance back there, that covered porch? That's an alternate entrance there?
I believe so, yes.
Yes.
Andrew, the stockade fence, I assume, would totally enclose the dumpster, and then to get to it, you would open a gate. So if you eliminate the stockade fence and the gate, and you replace it with vegetation, would that leave an area that it's not vegetated so that you can access the dumpster? And how wide or how big would that area be?
That's a good question. There would be an area that you could access the dumpster by. I can try to scale it on the survey. It's not very big. But it's sufficient to access the dumpster. And, you know, this is one of those things where, as an applicant, we're, you know, we don't, it's not something that we're going to go.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying, I agree with you. I'd rather have vegetation than a stockade fence. So,
right.
You know, philosophically, I'm with you. But I'm just wondering, I'm just trying to figure out how it would look.
I could suggest, you know, just putting a row of just plantings like along here so that in front, I guess not really in front, but where my mouse is, just along this side. And then, you know, in terms of access to the dumpster, the person can just walk through here. I don't know if it's going to be just lawn, but, you know, if it's maybe the applicant would like a sidewalk here so that it's easier for the dumpster to roll in and out. But if it's, you know, has some vegetation planted here, I think that would be sufficient towards screening from anyone walking on the sidewalk.
All right, great.
Why don't you work? Well, look,
it's very simple.
I'm going to work with the planning department, come up with something that I expect would meet our, requirements. And
that's fine. Sometimes a truck needs to back right up to the dumpster and pick it up. Just that's the applicant's concern, really.
Yeah.
Is it really a choice of either or, though? I mean, if we had some stockade fence to, you know, like a gated entrance to the dumpster, couldn't we still screen it the way that they intend? And then you're screening the stockade fence instead of the dumpster? It seems like it's not really a choice of either or to me. I'm open-minded about whatever the solution is, but we do typically ask that there's stockade fences to screen the dumpster in addition to whatever.
I like Ian's idea. Do the stockade and screen that.
I'm open.
Just to be clear, that's not something we're offering. We're offering one or the other. And, you know, this is a level of detail. This is a long road. We've come here. We're happy to do a stockade or happy to do the landscaping.
I think that this is something that we can leave it to the planning department and the applicant to work together to come up with something. And when they present it to us, if it's, you know, something that's completely unacceptable, we'll say, listen, it's no good. But I have faith that the applicant at this stage of the game and the planning department can come up with something that's going to meet everybody's requirements.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
The way it's shown here, the covered porch goes right up to the dumpster. There's no vegetation between the porch and the dumpster.
I just think that they can figure out how to make it look right, and that it's not in the applicant's interest to have something that's unattractive. So I think that, you know, they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like leaving this vague, though, is not doing the applicant any favors, frankly, because, you know, we have to approve a plan. Generally, we require stockade fencing. I mean, Andrew, are you suggesting that you would remove existing screening, or that you wouldn't add more if you had to put a stockade fence up?
I'm saying that the screening was put in order to shield that dumpster, and it's been thoughtfully done. You can see there that you can't really see that dumpster from the alley, from the neighboring parcel, from the other neighboring parcel, or from the street. So if you want a stockade fence, we can do that. We'll probably then let that screening just on the end of that building there, it is there to screen the dumpster. So if something else is doing it, we don't need to put it in. You know, that's the position. You know, we think it looks nice. I completely take your point, Ian, that like you're asking other people to do it, and so you want to be consistent. I guess my appeal is to be sort of consistent in the purpose, which is to shield the dumpster, and not be necessarily consistent like dogmatically and saying, well, it was stockade fence here, so it has to be a stockade fence there. However, if that's how you feel like you want to approach that, I respect it, and we'll put it in. But we're not going to say we're going to screen with vegetation and stockade fencing, because that isn't something that you're asking every applicant to do.
It is fairly standard that we will screen, you know, fence and screen certain things, and it seems like a minor detail. I'm not saying I'm locked in on that. It just seems like a silly place to draw. Well, silly is not the right word. I apologize for that, but it seems like a strange place to draw a line, because a stockade fence is fairly inexpensive. And, but, you know, I remain open-minded. I just was trying to offer some clarity to the applicant. That's all.
Let's see what they can come up with. You know, I think that's you know, working with the planning department. I don't think we need to take a vote on this, you know, on the issue of stockade fence versus screening. I think that this is almost to the point of being an aesthetic question that the planning department will provide guidance. And if it comes back to us and you know, we all raise our hands and say, "Oh no," then you know, the applicant will have to go another round. But I'd like to think that won't be the case. So, and the other two issues they've already agreed on. So we really don't have that much more to address on this one. Okay.
Great.
Very well. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to another portion of Montauk, we have South Essex Corner. And
I have another disclaimer to make here. The representative is my son-in-law, and I feel I can be fair and objective in my review of the application.
Thanks very much. We have Marco, this is yours also, and Ed, this is also yours. So go ahead, Marco.
Okay, I'm just gonna share my screen again. This is not too far from the location we just discussed. It's just across the street to the northeast. This is just an application to construct a 2-story, 2,000 square foot building with a first floor retail and deck, a second floor apartment with a porch with an unfinished basement on this vacant parcel, which is in downtown Montauk, bordering South Essex Street and South Euclid Avenue. The first floor proposes 2 dry retail uses and are permitted under CB zoning. Both are each 1,000 square feet. The second floor proposes a 1,049 square foot apartment with the roofed porch. The unfinished basement consists of 1,800 square feet, roughly. Front deck is 240 square feet. The following are drainage recommendations that were previously made by the town's consulting engineers. I could list all these, but in short summaries, some of the simpler ones are just proposed contour lines that transition into existing contours, areas that delineate the drainage areas, including the alleyway and on site. Great elevation for each leaching catch basin and a trench gate that should be noted, and so on and so forth. So the applicant has submitted an updated drainage plan that displays the proposed elevations of the dry well grates and the drainage areas delegated to the dry wells. I'll put that up here and zoom in a little bit further. If anyone has any issues reading, please let me know. So the additional drainage calculations have been provided that demonstrate that the dry wells have sufficient capacity to handle a standard measurement of 2 inches of rain. The proposed drainage structures are lower in elevation and should provide ample rain runoff mitigation for the neighboring parcels to the west. The planning board should discuss if they find the proposed drainage plan to be acceptable. The applicant has revised the proposed sidewalk to demonstrate proper access from the walkway to the main entrance facing South Euclid Avenue. In addition, a notation and illustration has been added that demonstrates the sidewalk will align with the neighboring parcel, which is known as Pete's Potting Shed, which also is subject to an active site plan application. Comments from the Chief Fire Marshal stated that the proposed project is not ADA compliant. It appears that the handrail provided for the handicap ramp does not meet the height requirement per the New York State Building Code. In addition, the comments state that at least one accessible route within the site shall be provided from public transportation stops, accessible parking, and public streets or sidewalks, and the accessible building entrance. The slope and parking and sidewalk not within compliance as per his comments. So the applicant should just revise those just to address those comments raised by Chief Fire Marshal. The Planning Department notes that the application would require an NRSP from the Zoning Board of Appeals from setbacks to wetlands. I do want to apologize to the applicant that this application was scheduled for the ZBA hearing yesterday, but due to an omission in the notice, it was not properly noticed, and so they will be rescheduled. So I do apologize for that. But going forward to the planning board side, the wetlands are located to the east across South Essex Street and adjacent to residential parcels. So the applicant has submitted that application for NRSP and for the necessary variances and is going to be waiting for a determination. The planning board has already submitted comments to the Zoning Board of Appeals as a reminder in support of an NRSP and for parking in the street right away. The applicant has submitted a new landscaping plan that illustrates an additional street tree on the southeastern corner of the property, which is recommended by the planning board. I'm just going to pull that up here. As well as a sketch illustrating that parking could have fit on site if it were proposed that way. So in total, 6 street trees consisting of 3 sycamore maples and 3 eastern white pines is to be planted along South Essex Street. The planning department recommends a notation on a landscaping plan. Same thing, the dumpster, just to have that notated however they want to address that with 6-foot high fencing or vegetation. So in conclusion, the applicant has submitted new information regarding the sidewalks, the landscaping, the drainage plans, and the grading plans. The applicant's going to need to revise the plans to address ADA accessibility, and the planning board should discuss if they find the sidewalk drainage and proposed landscaping trees to be satisfactory. Given that landscaping trees could be subject to the opinions of the Zoning Board of Appeals, similar to how they had opinions on the landscaping trees and street trees for 92 South Euclid as well. So that's it.
Hey, thank you very much. Again, for the thorough report on this one. Mr. Strong.
Great. Yeah, this one, there's a little less urgency because we still have to get in front of the zoning board to get the variances and the NRSP required. So we'll be back, in front of this board once we have a final determination from the ZBA. But just again, to trot down the issues raised, it's very similar. Where we agree with the town planner, we need to, and we're happy to submit an updated grading and drainage plan that's broadly, in line with the comments listed here. We absolutely need to update the railings to be ADA compliant. That's a priority for this applicant and for the site plan. And again, with respect to the dumpster, this dumpster does face the street or that alley. We have tried to screen it with various things, but we are happy to put a stockade fence if that's something the planning board is interested in. We have tried to in our planting plan put vegetation around it to shield it. So again, we're in your hands depending on how you want to go. But otherwise, we're broadly in agreement, and hopefully we can get the approval from the ZBA and then move towards a public hearing with this one as well.
It's getting a sense of deja vu.
Yeah.
Ed, this is yours.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So correct me if I'm wrong. I thought you actually did submit an updated drainage plan that took into account the consulting engineer's comments. Is that not true? Is that
we
not
did.
what it is? You did. Okay.
We did.
This is it's on display at the moment.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, because I thought you just said that Never mind.
The issue is that there are some discrepancies between the plan we submitted and the survey, and we need to get all the dates accurate.
I see.
We just need to tidy it up.
All right. Yeah. Okay. I just want to be clear about what you meant by that. And I think that's great. And thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. And I know, this is a very slopey site, and it, there's sort of issues with the neighboring property, which is, there's an active application going right now for some stuff to be done on that property as well. And I know that there's concerns on the part of the property owner there about this plan. I was just sort of wondering, I was talking to Marco about this earlier today, if we should have the consulting engineer look at this, and just verify that this is in fact what he recommended, that this actually does incorporate all of his suggestions. I think it might be useful, particularly since we have the time, to engage him again to just review the plan and make sure that all of his recommendations were covered here, so that we can be clear about that to all concerned parties in the neighborhood. That'd be a suggestion that I would make.
And while you're on that, Ed, not to interrupt you, but Marco and I spoke about it today too, and I actually spoke with one of the fire marshals about it, because he spoke with the owner on the neighboring property. As you know, we don't normally advocate handing each individual site plan off to the consulting engineer. It's simply not something that's been, allocated for. However, in this case, and on this block, as everybody knows, you have an odd topography situation. You have an application for a, somewhat industrial use on the neighboring property. It's standard when you develop lots in the downtown Montauk grid to have, improved alleyways. Saw that on 92 South Euclid, meaning, drainage structures and asphalt. What we're going to do is bring the applications for the Pete's Garden Center, which is next door, and this application to the consulting engineer, because I think this is a unique situation that really requires his review of what's being proposed, and not only review of what's been submitted, but his recommendation of what should be put in here by each applicant. It's standard that each applicant improves the alleyway basically to the extent of their property. But obviously, Marco just put up the topography there. Since you have such a unique situation here, they're sort of going to need to be, well, not sort of, they really need to be designed, comprehensively and in association with each other, simply because, each one, whatever design you have in the alleyway behind each of these sites is going to affect the other one, in particular the other property, which is downhill. So we will be bringing this to the consulting engineer along with the application on the neighboring property.
All right. Eric, I think this is the kind of application that calls out for the engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's done. All right, so that's good.
Can I just ask, what's the timing like on that? Just from the perspective that we're rather late in this, we're fairly well down the road here. I support the idea. We want to make sure the drainage works, but at the same time, I want to make sure that our application is moving forward and isn't contingent on a neighboring property finalizing a site plan that we don't have control over, and we're left sort of spinning for an indeterminate period of time. If that's not a concern, I'm happy to take your assurance there, but I want to raise that as an issue, and just see where the neighboring property is in their site plan process, and what's a reasonable time we can expect to see, the consulting engineer put these two plans together and come up with a plan that we can then incorporate.
Yeah, for sure. It's a legitimate concern, and I don't think it's something that would hold you up. You certainly wouldn't be forced to wait until something was submitted by the applicant. What I'm basically suggesting is that the engineers say, okay, here's what this should look like for these two properties. Here's the improvements that would handle the situation. And for basically him to say, here's all the details, and this is what's going to be required. Whether or not, obviously it would be best to have that addressed in an updated plan as soon as possible for each property. But even if it has to be a condition of approval, just that, the applicant shall perform the improvements to the alleyway as recommended by the consulting engineer. But I only spoke to Marco about this in, some detail and spoke to the fire marshal about it today. So we will be bringing it to the consulting engineer most likely this week. So, but yeah, it's not something where, you're going to have to keep resubmitting a drainage plan. I think it's sort of time that we've looked at both of these applications and said, exactly what you're afraid of, that they can't come in piecemeal. We need to have the engineer lay out what improvements are required to handle the stormwater runoff situation, and basically just require it of the applicants, each of you, in the future.
Okay. Good.
Anything else then?
Yeah. I do have one other comment, and that is, and I know this came up at the ZBA as well. One of the ZBA members has pointed out that sycamore maples, as lovely as they are non-native and are considered invasive species. So I just want to throw that out there. Marco and I also talked about this earlier today. If there's, an alternative, it is something we should look at.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything on this one? Sounds like they're going to be coming back to us. Anyone else? Okay, in that case, thank you very much. Mr. Strong, thank you very much.
Good to see everyone. Take care.
Okay, Marco, thank you for covering that one. And now the last item on the site plan review is T-Mobile at Home Sweet Home, the modification. Randy, you've got this, and Eric. And is the applicant on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line.
There we are. Okay. Very good. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so you should have your report from Cityscape, your wireless consultant. Basically, what you see before you is the star represents the rough location of a proposed second cupola, which was already approved by the planning board. This is a modification. The applicants have stated that they needed to slightly relocate the cupola due to structural concerns regarding the roof. And basically, the applicants provided an existing and proposed. This is what was approved in the center of your screen. And basically, they're just proposing to move that cupola slightly. Additionally, they're proposing to change the equipment that would be located in the interior of the structure, and to reduce the size of the already approved equipment area and concrete pad slightly to be in basically the same location. So the recommendation of your consultant is that this is a minor request, a minor modification, and that ultimately you approve it in a timely manner in accordance with federal timeline.
Very good. All right, does the applicant have anything they would like to add on this?
No, it's essentially, it's as Eric stated, we just had a structural reason to relocate the cupola that was previously reviewed and approved by this board last year. It's a minor change. We're just shifting the change of the location of the cupola, and there was also a slight reduction to the ground equipment space. That was to accommodate a request from the property owner. It was a very minor change to a project that was already reviewed and approved by this board last year.
Okay, thanks very much. Randy.
Ready to go.
Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay.
I have a resolution.
Anybody else have, we have a resolution on this one? All right, well, before we'll shift gears and go to the resolution, does anyone have anything they want to add on this? No, I'm seeing no's on. Hi, Randy, why don't you read in the resolution?
Okay. No, we don't have a resolution. It will be on for the agenda. Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, so then that's my mistake.
I put it on there. Sorry for the confusion, but it will be ready to go for the next meeting, which is 2 weeks from today.
Oh, the one we have is for Stephen Hand's Path. Sorry,
that's right.
Yeah, you know, get these things mixed up. Just a quarter mile down the road, Randy.
Sorry.
All right, maybe a little more. Okay, in that case, Mr. Kenny, the next time we're here, we'll have a resolution on to approve this. Okay?
Your time.
Very well. Our next, Eric, will we be able to have it up for the next meeting, you think?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we're on in 2 weeks. October 20th. Okay? Very good. Okay, so that concludes our matters on the work session. I know the agenda that was published had 2 urban renewal issues. Those are both going to be heard on another day because they require time and consideration, and it's a little bit late in the day for those. So we want to make sure the applicant has an opportunity to be heard. There is one board of review matter, which I'll read in. The request of Patrick J. Cantwell, trustee, for a building permit on the premises located at 32 Thomas Avenue in East Hampton. Portions of lots number 19, 26, 37, 44, 20-25, and 38-43. And block number 6. And it is Suffolk County Tax Map 300-167-4-9.4. The amount of the undertaking is $20,000, and the road improvement to be undertaken by the applicant is to install 2 catch basins and 2 leaching pools, 10 feet in diameter and 10 feet in depth on Thomas Avenue. I've read the board of review, and did I say there was an undertaking of $20,000? If I didn't, I'll say that now. I did, okay. And I move for the approval of this board of review.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passed and carried. And the last item that we will cover then, now we're back down in Wayne Scott. Randy, this one's yours. This is the Verizon Wireless at 106 Stephen Hans Path, which you should have in your pack. Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
In the matter of the application, the site plan special permit approval of Verizon Wireless at 106 Stephen Hans Path, personal wireless service facility, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-193-24. Now this says adopted 1/13/2021. I'm wondering if this is the right resolution.
Originally approved.
No, this is a modification.
Oh, this is a modification.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
adds.
okay.
Yeah, you're stealing my thunder here, Randy.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Did I? Oh, I'm so sorry.
No. Listen, it's fine.
Apologies, Ed. My apologies. See, Randy, that phone thing, the other one, it got me all confused.
Me too.
All right. Well, but Randy, you've already read it, so It's,
all right. Well, then, Ed, do you adopt what Randy read?
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Go ahead. Well, you get to make the motion, Ed.
I have read the resolution. Call for its adoption.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried 7-0. Okay, folks, we have another meeting on October 20th.
There's one more thing, Sam.
Did I miss something? Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, I have to read this.
That hotel. Yes, that's because your name isn't there. Okay, I'm off a bludgeon right now. So go ahead. I saw a release of security at the East Deck Motel, and I know you were assigned that earlier today in an audible. So please go right ahead.
Okay, just to cap the meeting then.
Yes.
In the matter of the application of East Deck Motel Minor Subdivision, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-32-6-16.2, 16.3, 16.4, and 16.5, which were previously Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-32-6-14 and 16. I have read the recommendation to release the security, and I move for its approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried. Okay. Thank you, Lou. Sorry about that. Again, our next meeting is on October 20th, and we will have our usual jam-packed agenda. And just for those of you keeping score at home, on the 27th, we'll be dealing with the Wayne Scott Commercial Center. I anticipate that will their EIS, and I anticipate that will be a substantial part of that meeting, if not the totality.
27th, okay.
That's on October. Yes, Sharon, that's October
No,
20th.
I had it on the 20th. Okay.
No, well, Thomas, am I wrong on that?
Oh, it's the 27th.
27th.
I have a question mark next to it, so now I know. Okay.
Well, we have a meeting on for the 20th, but that's going to contain our usual panoply of applications and other matters.
Okay.
So if anyone has anything else they want to add at this point, any
Motion to adjourn.
second. That was Ed. Ed got the second on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank
Good
you all.
night, everyone.